All right, I think we'll get started. Tracy Kleckel-Jimenez, I'm coordinator for the Cultural Thursday series. We don't usually do one in January, so I'm so happy that you're here. Hi, Leanne. You know, students, we hope to see, I'm glad that you're here. I know sometimes students don't feel the pressure of getting extra credit until the end of the semester. So those of you who are here, hats off to you. Our guest, Kylie Geatz, is a CLC alum, and she, interestingly enough, wrote a research paper on taking a gap year after high school with Adam Marcotte here in the honors program, and then pursued that on her own, which is really amazing that not only did she do research to see what it would be like, but then actually went forward with it. So she'll be speaking with us in a minute. I just want to put in a plug for this spring semester. In February, we have Bukata Hayes, who's the executive director of the Mankato Diversity Council. And I really think he was running for the mayor of Mankato, and it looks like he lost by about 1,000 votes just this past year, but has been doing some incredible work there in Mankato, and is going to talk in conjunction with Black History Month. And then in March, although we had advertised Gary Payne talking on Iran, they didn't get their visa. Those who were going as a part of a program, research program, it didn't come in time. And so we actually have Kari Frisch talking about her fellowship in India. She's there right now. She's there for 3 weeks doing a fellowship on urban sustainability, and she'll be speaking with us in March, so I'm excited about that. In April, we have the daughter of one of our staff members, Megan Foster, the daughter of Scott Foster. She's going to talk about her time in Russia. She's studying astrophysics at the University of Minnesota. And then in May, I and other students who are going to Cuernavaca, Mexico in March will be speaking about that experience living with families and attending classes and going on excursions. So please join me in welcoming Kylie Geatz.
Hi, thank you all for coming today. I'm Kylie. Nice to meet you all. I'm 20 years old, and last year I lived in Australia. It was really cool. Currently, I am a junior at Pace University, which is located in New York City in Lower Manhattan. I'm a marketing major and starting my first internship next spring, which is really cool. But this all led up to, it all came from my gap year experience. As Tracy mentioned before, I'm actually a CLC alumni. I did PSCO my junior and senior year of high school, and it was my senior year / my last semester here at CLC that I had Comp 2 with Adam, and he's actually one of my favorite instructors I've had at CLC. Totally recommend. But we had to conduct a research project, and he suggested doing something that we're interested in because it would make the project less of a hassle considering it's all semester long. And at the time, I was really interested in gap years and traveling because it was my senior year and I felt the pressure to know where I wanted to go to school and what I wanted to study, but I felt a little lost. I didn't really know either of those answers. So I talked with my high school guidance counselor and suggested the idea of doing a gap year, and she was kind of against it, but I ended up just doing the research project to kind of prove her wrong. And yeah, so it all led up to this. After that semester, I worked as much as I could over the summer to save because, as we all know, traveling is not cheap. So I had to find the most cost-effective way to travel and spend my time in Australia. Sorry. Is it touchscreen? The arrows? Sorry. Oh, there we go. That's okay. Yeah, I just didn't know how to do it earlier. There we go. But so first off, I'm gonna kind of explain what a gap year is. So taking a gap year, it's usually 1 year long, but it's kind of up to what you or the student wants. And to have a successful gap year, you need to have a plan. and with goals in mind and a timeline. So I knew I wanted to return to school in the fall of 2018, didn't know where, and I wanted to travel as much as I wanted. So that summer, I applied to be an au pair through an agency, and I was placed with a family in Brisbane, and I saved money all summer long so I could afford to move to Australia. I'm really nervous. I haven't shared my story with this many people. So, but yeah, so I was placed with a family in Brisbane, Australia as an au pair, and becoming an au pair is essentially like being a live-in nanny. So you're placed with a family and you live with them and you get free room and board, food, and pocket money. So my family that I was placed with was in Brisbane, and I had one kid, Jack, and he was 2, turning 3 at the time. But I didn't really know what to expect going to Australia, especially Brisbane, because when I thought of Australia, I just thought of Sydney and the 12 Apostles. I had no idea what Brisbane was until I arrived. But at the end of July, I left and arrived 2 days later in August in Brisbane. And yeah, so this is kind of the beginning of my time there. So this is Jack. My family was amazing. I had the most amazing host family with Jack. He's 2, turning 3 at the time, and my host parents, John and Bridget, they really took me in, and they really made me feel like part of the family, and we did a lot of stuff together. And Jack instantly became my best friend when I was there. We would spend every day together, having so much fun, going to the park, and his favorite, going to see the bin man, which is the garbage truck, on Tuesdays. But yeah, so I would take him to swimming lessons. It was kind of a part of the job, like spending time with him, taking him to daycare, and taking him to the park and spending time and having fun. But yeah. Down here in the left corner is my host family and their friends. So as a part of the family, I would spend a lot of time with them and their friends, and they made me feel really included and like part of the family, sorry. But they're actually from Ireland. They had moved to Australia in hopes of having a new life and creating a new life for themselves and enjoying the Australian life and culture, which Australia is very diverse. A lot of the people who live in Australia are from around the world. So having this mixed culture really creates this diversity that is very welcoming, and having the culture, it doesn't seem very different to America, but once you focus on the differences, you can really see how different it really is. But yeah, the best part of the diversity is the food. I tried Indian food for the first time, as well as Greek food and many different Asian foods, which was really cool and exciting. But continuing with my au pairing part of this presentation, I would teach Jack a lot of things. I taught him how to fish, which is very fun. We were fishing for geckos in the backyard there. I also taught him how to speak Minnesotan. By the end of the time, he was referring to Coke as pop, and I would ask him, Jack, where's Kylie going once she leaves Australia? And he'd say, Kylie's going back to Minnesota, eh? So, yeah, he's a professional now. Also, when I was his age, I was a big fan of Elmo, so my mom actually sent a little Elmo in the mail, and he loved it instantly, and he still brings Elmo everywhere he goes, which is kind of cool. But yeah, we did a lot with holidays too, because in Australia they don't celebrate the same holidays in the same way. It's not as commercialized. So they do celebrate Christmas, but it's hot, so it's a little different. So I did a lot with him, teaching him about Santa and having all the fun stuff. And we also did a Halloween party, which was really cool. I didn't take as many pictures. I wish I had pictures to show, but we made decorations with all by hand, and we took them trick-or-treating inside the house, which was really cool. Him and all of his friends, they really enjoyed it. But yeah, they don't really celebrate Halloween at all there, which I thought was weird. That's always been my favorite. But yeah, as an au pair, meeting friends is actually not too difficult. So Facebook really is the key tool. There's tons of Facebook groups for backpackers and au pairs in different areas of different cities and whatnot. And you would post like, hey, I'm off on this day. Who wants to go meet for coffee? And I would take that opportunity as many times as possible. And I met so many friends throughout my time in Australia. Many of them pictured here, not all of them, but I do keep in contact with a lot of them to this day. The girl with the red hair, that's my friend Clara. She's from Sweden. I'm actually going to go and visit her in Sweden over my spring break in a couple months, so I'm super excited to see her again, which is really fun. But creating those friendships and bonds is a little intimidating at first, especially traveling by yourself as a solo person, but you just got to take the chance and just go and meet new people. And it really pays off in the end. But now I'll talk a little bit more about this city and what I would do when I was there. So because of my schedule, the host parents, they were both in the medical field, so they didn't have set schedules week to week. So my schedule was always changing. So that allowed me to have a lot of time off and free time to do whatever I wanted. I took the opportunity to go and do as much as I could. So being in Brisbane, it's, I would say, the best city in Australia because of the location. It's located on the east coast, in between the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, which has many beautiful beaches. And Brisbane is the third largest city in Australia. So I would do many different activities with my friends, going to get food or walking around the city. My favorite thing to do on the weekends was go to each street markets. So they would take these shipping containers and turn them all into different markets for food and do like different art, like different artists would come and sell their art and different food, and the desserts were very popular. As you can see, there's a milkshake with a cronut on top. That was really good. I could drink about half of it. But yeah, I would go with my friends or my host family, and I went like 10 times. Which it was a little bit outside of the city, so it was kind of a trek to get to. But my favorite part about Brisbane was South Bank. So there's a beach in the middle of the city. So you're swimming in the beach next to the river, looking at the skyscrapers of the city, which I thought was really cool. But the location of Brisbane doesn't stop there. So Brisbane is also home to two of the largest sand islands, following Fraser Island. Sand islands are islands completely made up by sand. They're really beautiful. Most of them don't have paved roads, and they don't have commercial buildings. So a lot of people go, and they go on ferries in their cars, and they travel to these islands and go fishing and camping and surfing, which was really fun. I was lucky enough to be so close, so I could go on the weekends whenever I wanted. You would also see lots of whales and like lots of sea life. Every time I went, I would always see sea turtles and dolphins and sharks, which I had to learn not to be afraid of. But one time when I was at Stradbroke Island, there was about 40 dolphins swimming in the waves. It was really cool. They're all surfing. It was really a fantastic sight. But my first weekend trip that I took was to Byron Bay, and Byron Bay is known to be a hippie town on the beach, and it's really fun and has very relaxed vibes. And I went with my German friend Kira. I actually met her on Facebook. We both had the weekend off, and we decided to just go to Byron. It was about 2.5 hours, 3 hours away from Brisbane, and we just took a bus and went to Byron Bay and just went and hung out on the beach. And then the second day, we decided to go ocean kayaking, which is really difficult. It's very tiring. This 3-hour excursion was met by seeing whales like 20 feet away from our kayaks. the whale came above in like blue water. It was really cool. I didn't expect to see that. But we also saw sea turtles and dolphins in the distance, which was really cool. But that whole experience was really fun until the guy who was doing the tour, the kayak tour, decided to flip our kayak just to be funny. And we fell in the water, and it was in August, so it's still cold. And the ocean was really cold, and the air was cold. You'd be surprised how cold it is in the winter in Australia. But it was funny until I realized there are sharks in the water in Byron Bay. A lot of shark attacks happen every year. But yeah. So my next trip that I went on was to Sydney. So this is a picture of the Opera House and the harbor, which is hard to get into because they're so far apart. But Sydney is really cool. It's a kind of a real city vibe. It's almost like New York in Australia, which is not common because Australia is very relaxed and I don't know, not very city-like. I don't know if that doesn't really make sense. But Sydney is very fun. I stayed in Bondi in a hostel on Bondi Beach. And Bondi is known for its surfing and its beautiful beaches. And I stayed in hostels wherever I went. Hostels, for those of you who don't know, that's like the cheapest form of being able to travel. This is how you save money. You sleep in a room with like 7 other people on bunk beds, and you share a bathroom with the floor usually. And it's an experience you have to go through as a backpacker when you're trying to save money. But yeah, Sydney is where I met some friends who were backpacking, and I stayed in contact with them. They came and visited me while I was living in Brisbane, and I actually revisited them for New Year's Eve. So I was in Sydney for New Year's Eve, and I got to see the fireworks that went off the harbor, which Sydney is known for their amazing firework display. I didn't get any pictures, but that was a very fun night. My next trip, I went to Cairns. Cairns is the city where the Great Barrier Reef is, and it's in a tropical rainforest climate. So my first day, I went on a rainforest tour, and I got to see tons of really beautiful waterfalls. And keep in mind, because it's a rainforest climate, it's raining every day. So I got to experience all like the waterfalls completely soaking wet from the rain. But it was really cool to be able to see the inland because I would usually stay along the coast. 90% of Australia's population lives along the coast. So being able to take a tour and go see inland and see all of the rainforest, which was really cool. I also got the opportunity to snorkel in the Great Barrier Reef, which was amazing. It was also raining. It rained every time I was in Cairns, but the rain actually helps bring the sea life out. So when it's not raining, you get to see the colors of the reef, but when it is raining, that's when all the fish come out in the sea life, which was a pleasure that I got to enjoy. I got to swim with sea turtles and sea sharks and different fish, which I wish I knew more fish so I could name them off, but I don't. And probably the most exciting thing I did in Australia was bungee jumping. So I've always wanted to bungee jump, and I finally got the chance. And so my first bungee jump, I was really nervous. It was raining, and I thought the ropes were going to slip from my feet. But I did it, and I loved it so much, I did it again and again. So here are some more pictures, and I do have a video to show you of my second bungee jump. If it plays, hopefully. But as you can see in this video, this is my second one, so I wasn't as nervous. I was a little bit more excited. There we go. with bungee jumping, the ideal jump, you touch your fingertips to the water. As you can see, I went completely underwater all the way up to my knees. Um, the guys up top, became friends after my second jump, and I was then called Crazy Kylie when I came for my third jump. But after that, I left. I went back to my hostel. I couldn't afford to jump again because it is kind of expensive. But I went back to my hostel, and I was talking to this guy, and he was telling me how he's always wanted a bungee jump, and was like, you know what, I'll go with you. Let's go. So we went back, and I bungee jumped 2 more times. And so, yeah, I jumped the max of 5 times that day, and it didn't stop there. I bungee jumped again later on, which you'll see. So moving on, this is my last big trip in Australia that I did. I went to Melbourne, but for us Queenslanders, we call it Melbourne. And this is Luna Park. This is a famous amusement park, which they have one in Sydney and one in Melbourne. And I thought it was kind of weird looking at first because my host family have a painting of Luna Park on the wall in the garage, and it kind of scared me until I realized it was an amusement park. But moving on, this is something that Melbourne is really, really known for, is their street art. So you'll find lots of different art on all of the walls throughout the city. They started this when they had too much tagging going on with the people spray painting. So they decided to get artists and prisoners to just do art on the walls, and people were not littering the walls with tags anymore. So it's pretty cool. They have famous artists doing spots all the time, like Banksy. He's done a few pieces, which was actually covered up at one time, if you know who Banksy is. But yeah, and in the top right corner there, those are some of the famous beach huts on St. Kitts. They're really cute. They're all individually painted and unique. The reason why I went to Melbourne was because I wanted to go and see the 12 Apostles on the Great Ocean Road. So the 12 Apostles is one of the 7 wonders of the world. However, fun fact, there's not actually 12. There never has been. So they have no idea where the 12 came from, but it was still really cool to see. It was hours out of the city along the coast going up to Adelaide. But there's different famous spots, like this is London Bridge. This is not the Loch Arc Gorge. Yeah, this is the London Bridge, which has a really cool story. There's a couple that was stuck on the other side because previously it had been completely together, but they're stuck at the end because it fell through. So they're stuck for, I think, a full day before the coastal guards came and got them. But yeah, and then this is Loch Arc Gorge, which is a famous gorge. And I got the most touristy photo I have with my Converse completely soaked. Okay, there we go. And so that was a 2-day tour that I did. That was the first day going along the Great Ocean Road. The second day was visiting Phillip Island. And Phillip Island is famous for their puffins. But Phillip Island itself is very beautiful. But of course the main attraction is the puffins, which are like penguins. They're technically a different bird though. But the coolest part about the puffins is that they all come in all at once at sunset. So you go and you sit in these stands for hours, and you're waiting for sunset. And finally, once the sun starts going down, all of them return to land all at once. So this prevents them from getting attacked by prey. And they're so cute and tiny. And when I went, I think there was like over 2,000 that returned to land all at once, which was really cute. We're not allowed to take pictures, so I had to take this from their website. But yeah, so those were all of my kind of weekend and day trips that I did. Otherwise, I got plenty of time to go and see concerts. I got to see some of my favorite artists perform. Australia is really known for their partying culture, but concerts were really fun. That's actually a picture in the top left corner from one of my favorite bands, and that's when I became best friends with my friend Clara from Sweden. We went to that concert together, and that's where we really became best friends. But yeah, here are some more furry animals that I became friends with. Australia is really known for their kangaroos and koalas, but you can't forget about the wombats in the top left corner. Okay, well, I'm gonna go back because I'm gonna talk about the Australia Zoo. So the Australia Zoo is located outside of Brisbane along the Sunshine Coast, and if any of you know Steve Irwin, this is his actual zoo. So I got the chance to go and visit the zoo. It's really large, they have different sections, but that was a really cool day to spend. We got to go see the famous gator show, and the alligator was huge. I think he was over 700 pounds, and they did a whole show with that. It was really fun. And they have little areas where you can go and meet kangaroos and koalas and pet them, and that was really enjoyable. But being able to go to the Australia Zoo knowing who Steve Irwin was a really cool experience, just knowing something about Australia before I went. And also, Bindi Irwin, if any of you watch Dancing with the Stars, they have a little section dedicated to her, housing her trophy from when she won Dancing with the Stars. I did get a picture with that. But yeah, so in March, I left Australia. I actually had a 6-month contract, which was up in January, but I stayed a little bit longer to enjoy my time there. But leaving was really sad. I became really close with my family and all of my friends. I just had the best time. But at least I had something to look forward to. I planned a trip to go to do a South Island tour in New Zealand. So saying goodbye was sad, but at least I arrived somewhere just as beautiful. So New Zealand is really known for their beautiful landscapes, and Queenstown, which is their adrenaline city. But in the top left corner there, you see me in a donut. That's Springfield, New Zealand. So they have a donut to pay tribute to Homer Simpson, and that's pretty funny. But my first full day in the South Island, I went kayaking because it's kayaking. It's really fun. Everyone else on our tour went and did heli hiking, which is a really cool thing where you take a helicopter ride up into the glacier and you hike on the glacier. I couldn't afford that, but I still got to do this, and I did plenty of hiking on my time there. So after we went and did this kayaking, the 2 other people that were kayaking with me, we went and did a hike. I think it was 4 miles up into the glacier, and we got to see the glacier up close. That was really cool. And then after that, we went and did another hike to go see glowworms. So glowworms are these worms that light up in the dark, and it was still daytime. So when we hiked through this cave that was 1 mile long through water, we got to see 4 glowworms because sunlight was coming through. It was still really cool though. But later on that night, a girl who had done the heli hiking was really disappointed she couldn't go and see the glowworms. So I volunteered to wake up at 5 a.m. the next day to go and hike to see the glowworms again, which I was really tired. But it was really cool because it was pitch black outside, so we saw, I don't even know how many, at least thousands, right up close, which was really cool. It was like having little blue stars right next to your face. They're really cool. You can't take pictures of them. You can probably look up pictures online, but glowworms are really cool. So after the glowworm hike at 5 a.m., we left and we're on our way to Queenstown. We stopped and did another hike. This is Lake Matheson, and a lot of lakes in New Zealand are known for their really flat surface to make them look like mirrors. It's really cool. But eventually I arrived in Queenstown, and Queenstown is known for all of their adrenaline activities. They have as you can see, mountains. So they do have like a luge through their one of their mountains up there. But I was more interested in bungee jumping. So I booked a bungee jump to jump at the Nevis bungee jump. I wanted to do the first one. They do, like, bungee jumping was created in New Zealand, in Queenstown, but I wanted to do the 440 feet bungee jump. That was really terrifying. I wasn't expecting to be so scared until I got up there and realized it looked like a pin in the sky. It was so high up. But you have to actually jump forward head first, like a dive, which, as you can see, it's really far down. Just thinking about it now really scares me. I thought I had booked that for the morning, but when I showed up at 8 a.m., they told me it wasn't until 2. And I was really disappointed because I was ready to go. I wanted to go do something. So walking away from the bungee jump place, I ended up just booking another adrenaline activity and went canyon swinging. So a canyon swing is not as high, but you free fall for about 12 seconds, I believe. And I decided to do, you can do the canyon swing in different styles. So I did it in the Elvis cutaway, which is where you're hooked up with your harness, but you have a rope tied to your feet and you're held upside down, so you fall upside down and backwards. And I didn't know how that was gonna go, but the guy at the top, he told me to look at him. He was like, "Hey, look at me." And all of a sudden he took a knife out and cut the rope. So then I start falling. It was really fun, though. It actually wasn't that scary. It was kind of like a relaxing ride. But another thing that Queenstown is known for is their Ferg Burger, which is a famous burger joint that people wait like 2 hours in line to go get during their busiest hours. I will say it's good. I think Five Guys is still better, but people would probably fight me on that. But yeah, so then we left Queenstown and we continued our journey, and I did another hike. This one was out like a 4-hour hike, and it was downpouring. It was like storming, but I couldn't miss the opportunity to go and see another glacier. However, I got there, and as you can see in the background, it was too foggy, so we couldn't even see the glacier. It was still fun, though. Still fun. That's my friend Emily, too, right there in that picture. Funny story. So she was on the tour with me, and her husband actually knows my uncle, and they're from California. And yeah, that was kind of crazy. It's weird how small the world actually is. Things like that happened all the time. Like when I was doing the canyon swing, I actually met a couple who have a cabin here in Brainerd when I was in New Zealand. I don't know, it's just things like that, really crazy. But yeah, this is a picture. We all took selfies in front of this. This is a valley that is famous for being in Lord of the Rings and the Wolverine. Plenty of movies and other TV shows are filmed in New Zealand. But yeah, and this is Milford Sound. So a sound is a valley that covered, the sides have mountains and is filled with water. That's what a sound is. And this is one of the most popular sounds in the world. We took a, I think, 6-hour drive from Queenstown to go see this, and we got on this ship and this little cruise, and we went up and back the sound, and it was really fun because there's tons of little waterfalls along the sides, and it's really pretty, and we saw tons of seals too, which was cool. I like animals, if you can't tell. But yeah, so I talked a little bit faster than I was hoping to. But yeah, so throughout my time in Australia, I finally sat down and decided what I wanted to do, and found a school that I really loved, and it happened to be in New York City. So that's where I ended up. I came back to the States in March, and worked to fill my bank account because when I came back, I only had $17. But I worked and I saved as much as I could because I knew I was going to move to New York and live in one of the most expensive cities in the world. But yeah, so that's where I'm at now. I'm studying business at a school in the financial district, and I live right next to Wall Street, which is kind of crazy to think. But yeah, all of my experiences kind of led up to this point, and I'm proud to say I'm where I am now. At school, I'm in 2 clubs. I'm in a marketing club, and I'm an editor-in-chief for her campus, and her campus is a national online female-driven publication, which is really cool. I never really knew I had passions for writing and other activities. I kept a journal throughout all of my traveling experiences in Australia and New Zealand, and I journaled every single day when I was there, and I still have my journal, which is really cool to look back on. But now I write articles, and my first one is actually about my gap year, and it did really well, which was exciting. But yeah, so that's where I'm at now, and I came here today just to kind of talk about my experience and hopefully inspire some other people to just take the jump, literally, just jump. Anyone can travel. I was only 18 when I moved to Australia, and I just did it all by myself. And yeah, really anyone can do it. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
That's. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Yeah, otherwise I can talk about the time I got hit by a car on the bike. I don't know if anyone's interested, but I was in New Zealand and I was riding a bike. I had, like, all of my friends from the tour had left. I was staying in Christchurch, and I was staying at this Airbnb that was only 14 New Zealand dollars a night, which is like 8 US dollars. So it was cheapest thing you could ever find. But they had a bike I could use. This bike was a little bit too tall. I couldn't touch the ground. The brakes didn't work. And I went to dinner with my friends, and I was riding back to the Airbnb when this car hit my bike. It was all fine. I was fine, but the bike was not. Yeah, and that was the first time I got hit by a car. Yes. I did not understand how they spoke until like the last week I was there. Their dialect is really different, so they have a lot of like terminology that I've never even heard of. And their accent is so thick, it sounds like they're drunk all the time. I couldn't understand them for a long time, but yeah, good question. It took a long time. Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, you said you like really into writing. Would you, how would you feel about like, would you write a book about your experience in Australia, or do you rather you
I probably would. It would probably be a short book because obviously I like sped through this. I tried to, I don't know. I probably would. I do have a lot of stories. It's weird because the stories come up in certain moments. I'll just like remember something in a conversation and be like, oh yeah, this happened to me in Australia. And then it's just like this wild story that I just can't remember and think off the top of my head. But yeah, that's something I probably would do and just keep and give it to people that I know. But I do, like, I have written articles that have, like, were published online about my experience, but yeah.
other question? Somebody who's never been to Australia, what's the first thing you would tell them?
Ooh, I would tell them to go to the nearest beach because you can't go wrong. I'm very driven towards the beach, but all the beaches are just spectacular. Yeah, that's what I would do. Specifically, probably Stradbroke Island, which was that sand island I was talking about earlier. It's super cool, and they have, like I said, like so many different animals and sea life that you can just see, and it's really pretty. Yeah. Yeah, actually, it was weird. I got on the plane to Minneapolis, and I thought it was really weird how everyone was talking. We really do have a Minnesotan accent, and it's really noticeable. But yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but it was really different. Like, people here are super nice, and I work at a coffee shop, so I have a lot of conversations with my regulars. So people are really personal here and talk a lot, and I love that. It's so much fun. But yeah, even the food is so different here. The quality of the food, adjusting back to that took a long time. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so when you're going to a sand island, there's usually no paved roads. So you have to drive on the beach and along the island, which is just sand. So you have to be sure to take air out of your tires so you can drive. Yeah, it's a little different. But getting back, I don't know where you're supposed to fill your tires when you take that ferry back to the land. But yeah. Oh, yeah. She's right next. Yeah. So I used to get inspiration of where I wanted to go was just kind of from word of mouth. So I just talked to a lot of people and went to the main spots. I missed a lot of areas in Australia that I wanted to go to, which was kind of on purpose so I can go back. But yeah, I used word of mouth and asked people where I have to go. And people would tell me, you can't miss this, you can't miss that. And I hit those main spots, and that's where I went. Yeah. Um, yeah, traveling alone was very kind of scary. Um, Mostly just because I didn't have friends to talk to. So I would have to meet friends just like and talk to people. I'd have to go up to like a random person and just be like, "Hi, I'm Kylie. I'm here by myself. Can I hang out with you?" And it took me a while to get used to that, but the worst thing that could happen is they just ignore you. And that's their loss, honestly. But as a girl, it's probably a little more nerve-wracking than for guys. But overall, Australia is a very safe country, and you just have to be aware of your surroundings and know a little bit around, like, of the area. And have your contact information too. That's something that's really important. Be sure you have numbers and like to call because it's not always 911. So other countries it's different. So you have to be sure to know who to call in case of emergencies. Yes. I flew. So I took a flight out of Minneapolis and I flew to San Francisco. From there I went to Fiji and then to Brisbane. It took me like 35 hours to get there. And with the time difference, I left on July 30th and I got there August 1st. I think 22 or 24 in the air. Yeah. Ooh, scenery. I would say New Zealand because it's fairly untouched, so it's very natural. Australia is more like commercialized. There's more people there, but New Zealand is really just landscape. So I say probably New Zealand. I would very highly recommend going there. My host family was in Australia for like 6 or 8 years. So they moved there together, like when they were dating, and then they got married when they were there and had their kids, and I don't think they're planning on leaving. In the back. Yeah, so the dad, he was a doctor at a children's hospital. So he did that, and he also did like flying. So like he would be a doctor on helicopters and stuff for the hospital. So there was a picture with me and Jack in the beginning there. So he did do that in his free time, which I mean there wasn't much, but that's kind of his passion, being a doctor on like the helicopter. I think it's called like Lifelight or something. And then the mom is a like higher ranked like EMT, so she would respond to like the highest like calls, which was cool. I got to hear a lot of really gruesome stories. How much money did I spend? Oh my gosh. I would make like $200 a week. So that was my weekly balance that I got every week. And I was there, and I think I probably made and spent like $3,000 when I was there, in addition to like the $4,000 that I made before, so like $7,000 in that 8.5 months. But flights are not cheap. Flights are super expensive to Australia, as well as like visas and stuff. It all really adds up. But traveling and finding the cheapest way can really help, like staying in hostels and doing things like that. Even like you can get a private room in a hostel, it's gonna be cheaper than a hotel. Good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many sharks. They have like the great white sharks, and I think sharks are not very dangerous. They're very gentle creatures, but there's still a couple attacks a year, but they're really cool. She's from some like really small city in northern Sweden. So I don't know the name of it. It's really long. I wouldn't know how to pronounce it. But she's studying in Stockholm. So that's where I'm going. I'm gonna go visit her in Stockholm. So I think it's about 0.75 to the $1 Australia. Yeah, and it's about the same with New Zealand. I think it might be zero point 0.7 to $1 New Zealand. Yeah, that's true. It really doesn't get too cold in Australia, although in their capital, it does snow. Like, there are parts that snow, but I thought it was kind of cold when I was there. I had to buy sweatshirts and jackets when I was there. I was surprised. I use toilet a lot. If I'm going to the restroom, I just refer to it as a toilet, which I haven't dropped yet. That's kind of weird. But also like mate, I found myself saying that, and I still say that sometimes. But otherwise, being with them, I would use more of their slang. But being here, I don't use as much. Yeah. I am a lot more adventurous than I thought. I really didn't think I was that brave going there. I wasn't even scared to leave and go across the world. I don't think it really hit me how different, how far it is, but I'm a lot more brave than I thought I was. I do all these things and I don't think it's scary. That's kind of weird. Not many people do that, but yeah. Oh, I told my mom, and she was like, no. And I told my dad, and he's like, you're crazy. But I think they kind of understood that I've always wanted to travel, and I've always wanted to do things like this. So they just put faith in me, and they're like, okay, we trust you. You can figure it out yourself and go have fun. And I think me calling them every day on like FaceTime really helped reassure them I was safe. Yeah. No idea. No, I have no idea. I learned Celsius when I was there. Like, I learned the metric system. So I would know everything in Celsius, but I don't know how to convert that back to Fahrenheit. um, but uh, I looked up Brisbane. I had no idea what Brisbane was before, like, moving there. And I just saw it on a map, and that made no difference to me. I still didn't know where it was. hmm Yeah, thank you so much for listening to my rambling.